I'm back. It's Mama D hanging with the Lamberts. Except today you won't see any Lamberts. The kids are asleep and Dad is at work. I took a poll on my social media, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter to see thoughts on doing a video on my twin pregnancy. So I was actually 16 when I found out I was pregnant with the twins. I found out I was pregnant when I was 17. Didn't expect it to be twins at all. But after Randall and I got to talking about family, we were pretty much doomed because we both have twins on both sides, some identical, some fraternal. And I actually have first cousins that are twins. So I scheduled my first appointment with the Wayne County Health Clinic. That's where my family doctor was at the time. Not thinking anything about going to the OB because I was new to all of this. So I went to my first appointment at the Wayne County Health Clinic, and it was just all about paperwork and questions. And I had told them that I had a ER visit, and they said that they had seen 2 fetuses but only 1 sac. The doctor in the ER told us not to worry. She didn't think it was twins, that everything was fine. So I'm texting Randall freaking out. He was at work. And so when I had told the Wayne County Health Clinic, they looked at me like I was crazy. My grandma was upset because they were not taking it serious. So they did not do first ultrasounds like the OB does. They wait until you are 20 weeks to do an ultrasound. So I was 18 and a half weeks when I had my first ultrasound at the Wayne County Health Clinic. It was actually the day after my grandpa passed away on February 8th of 2018. They had started doing the ultrasound, and the nurse looked at me, and she looked at Randall, and then she looked at the screen and looked at my grandma, and she said, "I've got to stop." And we're all just sitting there, and she's like, "Let me just go ahead and scare you. You're having twins." So we all, like, my mouth drops, Randall's mouth drops, and his face instantly turns red. And my grandma just starts yelling, like, "Are you kidding me?" So after that, she had told me that they can no longer do care for me, that I would have to go to the OB, and then the OB would refer me to another doctor, or they would continue my visits there. So the OB referred me to St. Vincent Women's Hospital in Indianapolis, and they were great. I went there every week for ultrasounds and got to see the babies move all the time. And Randall and I, we did have a gender reveal, but we were going to wait to find out the gender until the gender reveal, until we found out we were having twins, and we were just super excited. So we were like, just tell us now. So the nurse told us that we were having twin identical boys, and we were super excited. I actually wanted a girl when I found out I was pregnant, but what female doesn't? So Randall actually started his new job the day of our first visit in Indy. So me, my grandma, my cousin, and my sister, we were going to Indy every week. It was the best car ride ever. I mean, we had so much fun. St. Vincent always got us in quick. It was great. And they also gave me 3D ultrasounds whenever I asked. My pregnancy was super easy. I only gained 20 pounds, and most of that was from the babies and from my placenta, because they had actually shared a placenta. I was about 23 weeks when I started having a lot of pain in my upper stomach and like mid-back area. So I was going to the ER often, and they had actually kept telling me that it was heartburn. Come to find out, after I had the boys, I was still having that same pain, and I knew it wasn't heartburn. So I went back to the ER, and it turned out that it was my gallbladder. So that was the only problem I had with my pregnancy, was my gallbladder, but that's pretty common in women who have babies anyway. Most women have to have them taken out. It took me forever to get name ideas out of Randall. We were just stuck. I mean, I had so many options, and he did not like any of them. So eventually I just wrote them on the whiteboard on the fridge, and I put a note underneath that said, pick one or add. And I had the names Mason and Miles, Kyson and Carson, and Bentley and Braxton on the board. And I came home one day from work, and he had actually put on the board, I like Bentley and Kyson, so what about Kentley and Kyson? And I loved the name Kentley, so we just went with it, and I was so glad that we were finally done and the names were already chosen. The middle names we picked were Joe and Everly, so Kentley Joe and Kyson Everly. So Joe is actually after my grandpa, Billy Joe, and Everly is after Randall's grandpa, Everett, and we just went with Everly because we liked it better. All I wanted to do with that pregnancy was sleep. I felt like the babies were literally taking everything from me and draining me. I actually had to stop working because my pregnancy was super high risk with them sharing a placenta. I remember going to my last appointment. I was actually 33 weeks exactly, and I had told Dr. Sumners that I didn't feel like I was going to make it much longer. Because my body just felt weak and I was having contractions often. And he had told me, well, I want you to at least make it to 37 or 38 weeks. And I looked at him like he was crazy because I knew I was going to go sooner. So I had my graduation that same week, and I was actually supposed to be on bed rest, but it was my graduation and I couldn't miss it. So I walked across the stage that week. And then on Friday, me and my grandma had went to Walmart, and I was actually walking through Walmart contracting, and I kept telling my grandma, something doesn't feel right. And then I was actually leaking fluid, so I told my grandma, and she was like, are you sure? And I was like, yes, I'm sure. And she was like, well, do you want to go to the hospital? And I said, no, you can just go ahead and take me home, and if I start feeling bad and it gets worse, then I will call you. So I got home, and I was home alone. I was doing the dishes, and I kept feeling like I was going to pass out. So I had called my grandma and let her know, and she came and got me, and we went to the hospital, and the nurse came in, she checked me, and she said, you are 3 centimeters dilated, and we have to call for your helicopter. I was so nervous. Randall was at work. My grandma was freaking out. I was trying to call Randall. I have never flown before, and I'm about to be in a helicopter while I'm in labor. So I asked the nurse and the doctor, I'm like, well, can anybody come on this helicopter with me? And she's like, oh no, honey, it's too small. And so I'm like, oh my gosh. So as they're getting me ready for my helicopter ride, they are giving me medicine, they're making sure I have enough oxygen, they're just making sure that I am going to be calm during the helicopter ride. And my grandma was calling my cousin, making sure that they had a way to get to the hospital. My grandma doesn't do highways. And so actually they got to the hospital at the same time as we did. I felt like the flight took forever. The helicopter was so small that as he was taking me out, I asked him, I said, are you sure I'm going to fit in here? And he said, honey, we have had a 400-pound man in here. And I did not see how. I was so, like, there was no space to where my arm was leaning on the door and I could probably point my toes and control the helicopter. So we get to St. Vincent, and they hook me up to the machines and everything, and the doctor comes in, and he tells me that since I am only 33 weeks and 5 days, that I will not be delivering. So he stopped my labor and told me that he would induce me that Sunday, which would make me exactly 34 weeks. So I contracted the whole 2 days. It wasn't bad. I didn't really feel them. Randall actually stayed in the one room with me, and my grandma and my sister slept in the waiting room. They're champs. And once we switched to the other room on Saturday night, they induced me, and my grandma and Randall slept through the whole thing. My nurse was super sweet. She held my hand. She asked me if I needed anything constantly. She actually held me the whole time I got my epidural. I was so upset when she left the next morning because I wanted her to meet my boys, considering she was there for me through the whole thing. So we actually woke up the next morning, and the nurse had checked me before I left, and she said that I am almost to 10 centimeters and that I would be pushing here soon. So I woke up my grandma and Randall, and I told them it's about to be time, because we were going to switch to another room, because even though I had the boys vaginally, they had to have me in a medical room just in case one of the boys flipped and I had to go into emergency C-section. So then the doctor comes in and she checks me too, and she's like, oh honey, you're only at 5. So here I am, after being in labor for 18.5 hours, I am freaking out. I'm like, that nurse just told me I was almost at 10, and now you're telling me I'm only at 5. So they sit me up in the bed. They're giving me the peanut ball, putting it between my legs, trying to get me to dilate faster. And then at about 12 o'clock, I got to 10 centimeters, and I was like, it's time to push, it's time to push. Well, my grandma and Randall, they were putting all their suit and everything on. And we went to the other room, and I just started freaking out. I was overwhelmed. There was 4 doctors, like 5 nurses, my grandma and Randall, and I just had to push. So I ended up having the boys vaginal. Kentley came out at 12:44 p.m. and Kyson came out at 1:06. Was it 1:06? Yeah, 1:06 p.m. It was the best day of my life. I don't regret it for anything. Having twins it's just such a great feeling. Their bond is everything, and they are the best babies ever.